Merch is only available for 3 more days, so if you're interested in purchasing a t-shirt or a hoodie, make sure you go down to the links in the description below or in the top pinned comment and get yourself one today. This is what I woke up to yesterday, and immediately I had to go check it out for myself, and then immediately after, I wished I could time leap so I could go back and not do those videos. In my defense, a lot of the series that I have talked about, it's aged well regarding what I've said about them. All right, they can't all be right. Okay, they can't all be. When I first talked about Tokyo Revengers, I saw it as a series that I thought had something interesting, unique, and compelling to bring to the table. Now, mind you, in my defense, it was my first delinquent manga. As I've gone on to read a few more, I realized that uniqueness isn't really all that present for me anymore. However, the aspect of time traveling was something that gave it still a unique sense regarding its own genre. However, with the aspect of time traveling, I've never really been big on it because I've noticed the more that it goes on, the messier it gets. And sometimes it gets messy to the point where it's narratively confusing and at times contradictory. And at first, I felt like Tokyo Revengers was doing a good job of when Takemichi time traveled, there was always a severe consequence to it. He can't save everyone. In order to save one person, he has to lose another. And that felt like that was a really strong premise for the series for its beginning stages. And I really enjoyed that because every moment felt tense. It had conflict. It never felt like things were going to go right. And Takemichi being a character that, despite his perseverance, is very powerless. In comparison to his peers, there was a severe consequence for what he did. And it didn't feel like the author was just retconning decisions through the character. The same cannot be said for what just happened in the most recent chapter in the series, where everything I just said has basically been thrown out the window. So remember a couple months ago where everyone was getting real upset over the origin of the Dark Impulse. And at the time, even though what was presented wasn't from Mikey's perspective, it still felt like that was the answer that was being given to us to a certain regard, or at least some sort of misdirection. So I was hard on it in the moment, but still open to the fact that that's not the final answer for it. In the most recent chapters, we get more of a revelation of where the Dark Impulse originated from, and even though I can say that aspect of it is better, everything else that proceeds afterwards, like I said in regards to time travel, really makes the whole thing messy and leaves a lot of questions in my head that I don't think I've had enough time to sit down and find answers for. And that's not to add on top of the fact that since Kisaki's death, or really since the revelation of his motivation as a character and then his horrid death, this whole Takemichi and Mikey back and forth has been a real slog. Like, as someone who does enjoy this series, I have not enjoyed this second half of the manga nearly as much as I did the first half. So there are 2 major revelations were given by Mikey, and that's his older brother was the original Time Leaper, and that his older brother essentially got those powers from killing a hobo, right? So his older brother, had killed the Time Leaper, and that's how he got the one. Remember the brother that died? In the bike shop, he got slammed over the head and killed. Yeah, that older brother. And Shinichiro got the power, killing the old man Time Leaper because Mikey, an accident had happened, and in order to save Mikey's life and make it better, he killed the Time Leaper, and then he thought it didn't work, and then he tried to commit suicide, and then his powers kicked in, and he saved Mikey, and instead of Mikey dying in an accident, instead you have the scene with the plane when Mikey punched the other kid, and that was quote-unquote the origin of the Dark Impulse, when in reality the origin of the Dark Impulse was born out of love because yeah. And this sort of plot twist is tricky because you don't want to take your reader out of the story, right? You want to keep them in that, and so when they read it, they go, oh yeah, okay, I see it all. Wow, this was genius. Instead, it feels like this was made up in the moment and then fitted in retroactively to make all of these things work. And so that Dark Impulse has affected everyone around him, including Mikey, and it says it's been eating away at him more and more and more, and then he says, you know what, I think that's what it is. I think this all just feels like a really rushed, put-together ending because he wants to end the series at this point, when I think a lot of us wanted the series to end much earlier. So much of this dialogue just feels so painfully on the nose, and we're just being dumped with all of this information at the end that's meant to wrap everything up in a pretty bow tie, and then that's that. And then we got to get this final confrontation between Mikey and Takemichi, which has basically been going on for a while now. And again, Takemichi shows his perseverance once again and his determination to save Mikey, which makes Takemichi, I think, very likable. And I don't really have an issue with it from Takemichi's perspective whatsoever. But then this is where it kind of goes south. So we're about to see Takemichi and Mikey have this crazy showdown, right? Mikey starts letting loose because he needs to, because he has to let out the dark impulse. And this ends up in Takemichi being killed, which when this happened, I was like, oh, snap. Okay, wait a minute. Okay, all right. You know, a bit of a tragic ending. We're going to go back to what I said in the beginning. What I loved about Tokyo Revengers was no matter what Takemichi did, he couldn't save everyone, because in order to save everyone, it required some sort of sacrifice on some end. And so in order to save Mikey, Takemichi would have to die. I could, you know what? If that was the vision for the series all along, would it be a little odd, and would I need time to digest that and see how I felt about it? Yes, of course. And it's all really about the execution of that, especially regarding the resolution stage and what all the characters do after, you know, Takemichi passed away, if that was the direction it was going to go in. But that's not what we got. Instead, we got Takemichi waking up again in the past as a little kid, and then him and Mikey recognize each other. And then here's the both of them time leaped. Now, mind you, when the revelation of Mikey's older brother being the original time leaper happens, we see that he stole it from the hobo, right? By killing him. The hobo said he got it from killing someone. So Mikey's older brother didn't have to kill anybody, and Takemichi didn't have to kill Mikey's older brother. Mikey's older brother just gave the power to Takemichi, which when reading that, I was a bit like, all right. So I guess that sort of premise of having to kill someone to get the power from someone else would, you know what I mean? It's just kind of like, oh, okay, well, I guess that concept's not really going to be done with. And then now both Mikey and Takemichi time leaped because, am I missing something? Does it have something to do with like the dark impulse and that when Takemichi, see what I mean? This is what I'm talking about when it comes to the whole time aspect, and the longer you go on with it and the more stunts you pull with it, is that instead of me being immersed as the reader, I'm spending more time trying to wonder how this is making sense, because then we end up getting a montage of Mikey and Takemichi running happy as can be, and this was really the nail in the coffin for me. This piece of dialogue just made me want to slam my head against the wall. And that's when Mikey says, I don't get the logic, but I felt something when I held my hand in yours. And then Takemichi says, I thought I was handing you my powers, but the moment we shook hands, we both got pulled back in time. And then that's it. And then they both go on to have their revenge and go on and save everybody. And so now I'm not only pulled out of the story because of the whole revelation that we're given regarding the origin of the time traveling and the dark impulses, but now I'm pulled out even further because it almost feels like it's quite literally admitting, hey, it don't really make sense, but it's convenient, let's make the most of it. Retconning the series through the character power. I am sick. This truly feels painfully rushed. And it's a shame because I don't, oh my god. This actually reminds me a bit of the ending with Magical Girl Site. It's like the most viewed video on the channel, but I did a part 2 where I actually went on to read the rest of the series, where, spoilers for that one, it turns out that the romantic interests are sisters the whole time, which was a whole doozy in and of itself. But there's like this whole retcon thing where they go back in time and save everybody, and it's just kind of like, oh, well, that's neat, it's wholesome, and if you really like the characters and you wanted to see a happy ending, then I guess you're probably going to be satisfied with this. But I truly am not a fan of the concept or the execution behind the concept. The only argument for it would be that it fits the series and the theme of the series, but even then I'm not really sure. I'm just really here more scratching my head, just kind of like, oh, Okay. And it's a bit of a shame because I'm content with Takemichi as a protagonist because he sort of accomplished what he set out to do, and we got to see his want versus his need as a character in a sense. I'm not satisfied at all with Kisaki as an antagonist or Mikey as an antagonist. And it just, again, when it comes to this sort of, oh, we fixed everything sort of ending, even though we know everything that the characters had to go through to get to this point, it feels like all of this was dragged out longer than it needed to be just to be rushed in the end. But I could be wrong on my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. As always, this has been The Masked Man. Hope everyone has a blessed rest of the day, and peace.